Happy Halloween, everyone. Today is a special day because not only is it the best time of the year, Halloween, and fall, it's awesome, but we're going to talk about two awesome games today. We're going to talk about the original Resident Evil and the original Silent Hill, both on the PlayStation. Let's start with Resident Evil first. So, this is Resident Evil. Now, obviously, this is a bigger box. This is not a special edition or anything. This is just what PlayStation games used to come in. As you can see, over time they eventually switched to the jewel cases. However, I like these big boxes. I know that they would cost more to produce, but they just look so awesome, especially when they're on your shelf. Oh, it looks so cool. Now, the only thing that kind of sucks about these is that they start to fall apart eventually. I've actually had to put some tape on the sides here so the labels don't go flying off. And yeah, that's about it. Other than that, I'm just going to show you the cover art because it just cracks me up every time. Now, I'm guessing this is supposed to be Chris Redfield, which it doesn't look anything like Chris Redfield. Even in the later games, if you try to compare, that's not Chris Redfield, at least to me. So, I mean, maybe that's what he was originally supposed to look like, or maybe it's just some random guy that's on the cover. Whatever. I still like the cover because it looks awesome, and it's got the big Resident Evil logo on here. It just always looks so classic. Now, one particular memory I have with this game is the first time I played it. The first time I played it was a long time ago, and I will never forget it because how can you forget the first time you played this game? If you're either my age or older, you probably remember the first time you played this. Obviously, I didn't play it when I was brand new. However, I still played this, and the first time I played this, it spooked me. And I don't get spooked very often by games, so it was pretty cool. So I remember picking Chris Redfield because I had just played Resident Evil 5, and I decided to go back and play the first one. So I played through 5, and I went back to 1, and I was like, oh, Chris Redfield's in the game. I'll play as him. Well, had I known earlier that Chris Redfield has the worst game between both characters, I wouldn't have picked him. But I went and picked him. So obviously, when the game starts and you start moving around, and you know how the original Resident Evil controls are, they're kind of like tank controls. It's all jacked up. So I barely had any grasp of the controls, and I was a pretty experienced gamer because I've been playing games since I was 3 years old. So even for a guy who was playing games all the time, it was still very awkward trying to move around. But that's not the point. When I got to the zombie in the very first room, I just remember panicking and dying. That's all that happened. All that happened was I see the zombie, I start to panic. So Chris is pretty much just running around in circles or walking back and forth in a way, and I just get eaten to death by the zombie. And I'm just like, really? Nothing? Nothing? That's it. Because I was used to Resident Evil 5, which obviously you could just run around and shoot everything in sight. Now, as I grew older, I got more into this game, and I became a decent Resident Evil player, even though I haven't finished this game yet, which annoys me. I always get stuck in this game, and I don't like to cheat. I like to play games legit. I like to solve puzzles on my own. So, I still haven't beaten this game, and I really, really want to, but I always get stuck every time. And it's so annoying because I get stuck on the same part. It's right after I get to the hunter part, and the thing just cleans my head off, and then I have no idea where to go next because I always forget where I'm at. So yeah, that kind of sucks. So pretty much in the end, classic game. Really, really should be played by a lot more people, especially like younger guys. The younger guys who are busy, playing even like the later Resident Evil games or games like Outlast or Penumbra. Play this one. I think you'll like it. It's a bit hard to understand at first, so go ahead and play it. It's the granddaddy of survival horror games. You'll love the bad voice acting. It's awesome. Now the second game here is the original Silent Hill for the PlayStation. Now as you can see, it doesn't come in a long box, because at this time they moved away from the long boxes to the jewel cases because it was less expensive to produce. That has no relevance to the game, just some history I thought I'd like to tell you. This game is one of the all-time greatest games of all time, in my opinion. I think Silent Hill is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, survival horror game there is. Resident Evil started it, Silent Hill improved it. for a couple of things. For one, the music. It is so good, and the atmosphere. Everything about this game is awesome. You feel like you're just doomed playing this game. Whereas in Resident Evil, it's kind of like a jump scare, you know. Not that there's anything really wrong with jump scares, but I prefer a more like kind of doom feeling, if that makes any sense. Now this game is also has a very confusing story and a very confusing lore behind it. It's actually one of the few games where I've gotten really interested into the lore because of just how wacky and crazy it is. The other game being Halo, which is, well, if you watch my channel, you know that's my favorite game of all time. But anyways, Silent Hill is a fantastic game. There's like 5 or 6 different endings, and I've gotten every single one of them. It's a pretty fun game too. Not to mention how screwed up I can be at times. The monsters alone in the game are something straight out of a nightmare. That's kind of what Silent Hill is. It's a psychological horror game, so everything kind of takes place in the character's mind, in a way. It's hard to talk about this without spoiling stuff, or just because I don't even remember it that well. But it's very, very confusing, and overall, I mean, well, it's not that confusing if you just kind of play the game and go along with the story. But trying to explain it to someone, it's not very easy. So you kind of have to play the game if you want to understand what's happening. But anyways, yeah, that's about it. Those are the 2 games that I think you should be playing on a Halloween night such as this. When it's dark outside and there's nothing else to do except answer the door for trick-or-treaters. So, see y'all later.